Barbara Foote, and I'm a docent at the Mendocino Presbyterian Church. I am continually amazed at the talent in and around this place. There are artists who design and execute beautiful stained glass windows and banners to hang inside the church, and paintings and music and flower arrangements and a myriad of day-to-day tasks. But today I want to talk about our bell rope. It's called the Reep rope. It has a fascinating story, how it came to be and the people involved in making it and in making it happen, and the history it tells. I hope you enjoy the story. It all started with a lady by the name of Betty Storrs. So Betty, how did it start?
Well, Sam and I were both bookbinders, both on an international, actually it's a list of bookbinders who are connected by the emails. And it's the Book Arts list. And I had joined, or I had signed up onto the list early, just after I had gotten a computer for the first time. And so I was brand new at this, and one day on the messages that came in which the writer said that he had just finished braiding a bell rope for the bell in his former church. And it had taken him 20 years off and on, working at it, 20 years to make it. When I read that, I thought, oh my goodness, 20 years. And I wrote a letter, sent it off to Sam in response, and said, you should see the rope for our church bell. The church is 150 years old. Every time we need a new rope, we go to the hardware store and buy one. And it doesn't take us 20 years. Well, Sam responded then and said, well, he was interested in our church, asked a lot of questions. So I wrote back and sent him all the things that I had looked up and had for the church, and sent the list to Sam. I included the movies that had been made, and also the sociological study. And it was then I found out that Sam was a retired Presbyterian minister who had made bell ropes, learned to make the sailor's knots, and he was a charter member of the International Guild of Knot Tires, and he makes bell ropes as a hobby.
Fabulous.
When they began the rope, the first thing is at the top of the rope, the beginning of the legends, the sections that tell the whole story, is a star knot, which has 8 knobs around it. And in the middle of each knob, they inset a mustard seed. They got the seeds from Missy. Missy is Sam's wife. From Missy's spice collection. And that those mustard seeds symbolized the faith of the 8 saints who started the whole church. When Sam came that night, he had never been in Mendocino, had never seen the church, and yet he could do this fantastic rope that told of the life of the church.
I started working on redwood and rawhide today when I got back from San Antone. Got to go back to San Antone tomorrow, so it's kind of a slow start, but I got the mustard seed in hand. Wendell, thanks for the wood. I'm going to make a kind of clapboard wrapping, if my hands cooperate, to go around the rope up near the top to symbolize the early redwood connection. Got a start today, laced on a 16-inch piece of rawhide and worked on the redwood thingy. Next comes a 8-strand star knot at the very top. I'm going to work on the star knot more today. I've been trying out different cords. I was hoping to do it in hemp, but hemp cord is too stiff and uncooperative. I'll try cotton today. I just prefer not to get the nylon into the rope covering back in the earliest days, though I'll have to incorporate it by about the gay 90s to get the color I want. If the cotton doesn't work, it'll probably be nylon from the top. I look forward to your thoughts on the bells. It would be appropriate, I think, if among the wood artists there in Mendocino, we could find someone to turn on a lathe a red bell about 3 to 4 inches tall and about the same diameter at the rim. With a hole drilled in it vertically, I could mount it on the rope at the appropriate place. After all, it was the redwood that brought the bell, as I recall. I wouldn't need any of the innards on the bell.
Willie MacArthur, one of Mendocino's fine woodworkers and NBC member, will be happy to turn a redwood bell on the lathe at his shop. He has a piece of 4x4 old-growth redwood that will be perfect. He asked if he should drill a hole for the rope in the center of the solid bell, or if the bell is to be carved out inside.
Friends, I'm at a point on the rope where I need to add the bell before going any further. I'm going to put it at the bottom of the rawhide section, and if I move it now, I won't be able to slide the bell up the rope. The bell is on the rope. I tied a hemp Turk's head above it and black nylon one below. It looks like a clapper. I may use the bell as kind of a dividing line between the pioneer days and the more modern times. Haven't decided yet. It's the decisions that's taking the time. Once I make them, the knotting moves along. Only 12 feet to go. 1870s and 1880s transition. I sense that during this time MPC and the community were sort of coming out of the pioneer days. I indicated this with 3 knots in which there is a transition from old materials, I used cotton for this, to new materials, nylon. I don't mean that it had nylon in the 1880s, it's just a symbol for progressive modernization. The first knot, white, is cotton. The middle knot, blue and white, is cotton and nylon. The third knot, blue, is all nylon. 1890s. The color brightens for the gay 90s. The marker for the turn of the century, red, white, and blue, representing the national optimism at the time. It's shaped like a globe. 1900 to 1960. This part is composed of the liturgical colors. It was a period of growth for MPC, and the largest number of members to date was achieved during the pastorate of Reverend Fisher. It happened just about the time of the 50th anniversary, the gold Turk's head. The increase in the diameter is intended to indicate this. Things began to fall off a bit after that with the reduction in lumbering, so the rope narrows a bit. World War I Turk's head. The black is intended to remind us of the dark side of the war. There will be a white Turk's head covering the loose ends just below the World War I knot. This will indicate the passage of the 18th Amendment, Prohibition, toward which members of MPC worked very hard. White was the color of the temperance movement, which got underway in the late 1880s. I've used white throughout the period from about 1890, both as a liturgical color and a symbol of the MPC involvement in the temperance movement. 1990 marked the passage of the women's suffrage amendment. If there's a color associated with that, or even with the subsequent women's movement, tell me about it, and I'll try to add that at some place. The Roaring Twenties. Here I brought the liturgical colors into the knotty struggle with more modern secular colors. Again, the white also represents Prohibition and is in direct tension with the black, the dark side that came with it. The big black Matthew Walker knot at its tentacles represent the crash of 1929. The Great Depression. The blue represents the church, the natural color of poverty of the times. Toward the end of the decade are knots indicating the struggle to make do, and the whole thing is covered with stretched sinew to give a sense of tension and stress of the era. The diameter of the rope drops, and the whole thing contrasts with the happy-go-lucky 20s. In the end of the blue of the church survives, and we are ready to face the new era. It begins with World War II. Got back to work on World War II yesterday. I'm about to mount the main knot and go to work on the mushroom. Still don't know exactly how to handle Vietnam. It doesn't have the clean beginning and ending. Maybe the ending is fairly sharp. The other wars do. It just pervades and other things that are going on. Any of you symbologists out there know a color or a material associated with institutional 100th anniversaries, and in the same manner that gold is associated with 50th anniversaries.
The almanac didn't have any reference to anniversaries of buildings, but since gold is the color for the 50th, how about a double gold band for the 100th?
Good idea, dear. I knew you'd come up with something creative. Guess I couldn't add 50 and 50. We'll do it, unless something better comes along, but can't imagine what. I guess the almanac stops at 70 because they were thinking mainly of marriages.
A librarian at the Chicago Public Library found the answer, a 10-carat diamond.
Okay, where are you going to find a 10-carat diamond? Maybe you could substitute a zircon or a huge rhinestone or a sparkling piece of glass. At that instance, no one would really know the difference. Besides, we could say that we were afraid to put the real diamond on the rope for fear it would be stolen.
Well, I just figured that you'd have a few lying around and we could use the one with a flaw in it since no one would know the difference. Of course, even if we used a piece of glass, the rumor would get around town that it was a diamond. Then you'd lose the front door and the Reep rope. So let's just stick with the double gold Turk's head. Got started on the 60s yesterday, then took it apart and started over. It's a couple of psychedelic colors plus purple and red, an underlying line of camouflage which will become more visible if I can figure out how to do it as the Vietnam War escalates. Looking at the rope now, I've got about 8.5 feet covered. I realize that there are bound to be those who have preferred less variety and more of a sedate, uniform design to go with the beautiful building. I would understand that feeling. I guess it's tension between the security provided by beautiful architectural space and the unpredictability of the way we actually live out our life and history. The 60s are nearly finished, and then I will begin the grip. The latter will be a couple of inches lower than I previously estimated. In yesterday's note, I expressed some misgivings that continued to bedevil me. They arise mainly as I look back over the photos of your beautiful church and building. I do believe that the history of the congregation and the community is fairly reflected in the knotwork, but I can't help but realize that a piece of the church furniture is going to be different, maybe too much so for some. You know the congregation, and I don't, so I would really like to hear your thoughts on this. From the grip on down, things will get calmer as far as the colors are concerned. That will be the most visible part of the rope, so perhaps that will help. The 60s are in the rope. I get started on the grip tomorrow. I now expect to be through the main knotting by the end of the year, maybe sooner. Never have enjoyed a project more. I work on it every afternoon for at least a couple hours. What a kick. The bell rope is coming along. I finished the knotting for the grip yesterday. I'm ready to start on the Garden Antioch era. Got to think about it some. I don't want to present it as some Armageddon. I would rather emphasize the resolution than the fact that many of the Antioch folks are active church members today. I just don't want folks who were involved in the struggle to have a bad feeling every time they pass the rope or ring the bell. The dedicatory cylinder of redwood burl crafted by Bob Droz is one of the most beautiful pieces of wood I've ever handled. It speaks to me of the beauty and unity and diversity visible in the Mendocino Church.
The Reep rope is named for and dedicated to the memory of W. Harold Reep. Harold, a church member for 60 years, was born in 1910 and died in 1992. For over 35 years, he rang the church bell every Sunday morning.
A friend has a copy of the Reep rope book that I wrote, and he wondered, he had forgotten why we called it the Reep rope. And he forgot that it was for Harold Reep, who had been the main bell ringer for many, many years. And he looked it up in all dictionaries, could not find what REEP meant until he was surfing the internet and found a Reep Street, Reep Strasse or something like that, in Germany. The name of the street comes from, it's a Reep, R-E-E-P, in Old Danish meant rope. And it was the street where they grew the hemp that made the rope. You see, Reep means rope in Old Danish.
I love it.
So now we have Reep. Reep rope.
Shout of Joy, Sam Lanham's logo, is mounted on the reverse of the dedicatory burl.
The Shout of Joy is our registered trademark. We first discovered it in a book of extinct languages where it was identified as the ancient Egyptian pictograph, meaning a shout of joy. Later, a friend pointed out that it was also the primitive Chinese symbol for God. It seemed to us the natural way to express hope and faith in the goodness of God's creation.
Sounds as though I might not make much of a break on the rope between the Garten years and the 90s. Just shift of colors, perhaps. Or maybe I'll just indicate the beginnings of the resolution toward the end of the 80s and go ahead with my plan for the liturgical year and the 90s. We'll see.
Mendocino Presbyterian Church, in the last years of the 20th century, has diversity and unity, represented by crown knots in the liturgical colors within the fold of the Lord Jesus. The globe knot represents the world in the liturgical color we use for Christmas and Easter, and is a statement of mission. The knob knot at the end closes out the 20th century.
Brother Wendell, I'm working on the final fob at this point. I want to have it tooled and ready to go, maybe even mounted before I do the last section of knotting. I've decided how to attach the rope to the fob other than by knots top and bottom. That may be enough since the channel does not open completely at the lower end. Then I do want to inlay a piece of Apollo 11 project heat shield to symbolize the arrival of the space age. You found a remarkable piece of wood.